All right, we're live here today with Ken Holmes. He's the owner of a local pool repair company called Leak Tech. So we're going to talk to him a little bit about what he and his company does. And then we have a fun little thing at the end that we're going to share about something really cool that he and his family does to help some people out in Guatemala. So that's a fun thing to stay tuned for, and so we're going to learn a little bit more about that. But first, we're going to turn some time over to Ken to tell us a little bit about what his company does and what they offer.
Sure. So the company is Leak Tech, and as you can tell by the name, we got our start by finding leaks. We specialize only in swimming pools, and we got our start by finding leaks in pools and fixing them. And then we've also morphed over the last 15 years or so into full renovation. So with the soil that we're built on here in the DFW area, the clay, there's a lot of ground movement, causes foundation problems, but it also causes a lot of in-ground pool issues. And so that's the kind of things that we can find: underground leaks, pipe breaks, cracks, that kind of thing, and fix them. But then, like I said, we also kind of the other half of our business is the full renovation side.
Perfect. How much do you think you spend for each? Like, are you kind of more so the leaks, or are you kind of half and half at this point?
It's probably, it depends on the time of year. We are very busy with renovations in the spring and actually surprisingly in the fall. A lot of people that call us out and have us look at their pool in the summertime to renovate it, I'll put them off. If the pool is still swimmable, I would rather them get to swim and enjoy the pool in the summer and then let us come in the fall. And so we have a lot of business in the fall. The leak detection and repair side is a little bit more steady, but it picks up also in the fall, mostly because we get a lot of summertime drought here, and that drought is what causes the pipes to break, the pools to crack, a lot of the leaks. And so detection and repair side in the fall, just because of the ground conditions.
Got it.
So how long does it usually take? For instance, if you want to do a full renovation, what would somebody be looking at as far as timeline?
So full renovations, if you're talking about doing the decking, coping, tile, plaster, everything.
That's everything.
Yeah. Construction time is probably about 3 to 4 weeks with no weather breaks or other delays. And then a lot of people don't know this, but when you replaster a pool, the plaster takes a full 30 days to cure. And it cures underwater, so it looks pretty, but you really can't swim in it for 2 or 3 weeks at least, because the plaster is still pretty soft. In fact, we had a renovation project where the lady had a bunch of dogs, and she tried to keep them out, but dogs got onto the steps of the pool within the first couple of weeks and left little paw prints. So
It's kind of fun, though.
Hopefully she likes that.
yeah, exactly. But luckily she's a dog person, so maybe she didn't mind.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So what should people kind of look for I'm sure it's probably not really easy for someone to know if they have a leak. So as you said, our soil here is just crazy and wreaks havoc on the pools. So what are some things that they should be looking for to give them like, hey, I might have a leak problem here?
Yeah, people find us a lot of different ways. The first thing everybody thinks, well, I'm not seeing any water at the surface. I don't see any puddles or whatever. Once again, with the nature of the soil that we have, it's really rare to actually see any signs or symptoms at the surface. Most people will see, hey, I've got a really high water bill, and then they'll start kind of narrowing some things down. Maybe they turn off the sprinklers or whatever and try to narrow it down. So that's one way. I recommend, a couple of times a year, you can do what's called a bucket test, and we have the methodology for that on our website. But basically, you're taking a bucket full of water and you're putting it inside the pool on one of your steps, and you take a Sharpie or a piece of tape and you're measuring how much water you lose on the inside of the pool or inside of the bucket versus outside of the bucket. And if they're the same, then it's just evaporation. So basically a bucket test is a fancy way to do an evaporation test. But if you lose an inch of water outside the bucket and you only lost a quarter of an inch inside the bucket, then you have a problem. So that's one way. The other way is people will just take a piece of tape or something and put it on the pool, or maybe you look at a grout line in your tile in the pool and you kind of measure from that. But you just want to make sure that it's not evaporation, because we are in Texas, and in the summertime here, people can lose easily a half an inch or maybe even a little bit more every day just because of evaporation.
Yeah, I've been wondering about that, just like evaporation versus, an actual leak in the pipe. So it's a really scientific test, it looks like.
Yeah. The bucket test really is a good way. It's free and it's easy. It takes 24 hours, and it's a really good way to make sure, hey, am I leaking or not? And if you think you are in the summertime, you got kids in the pool and they're splashing water around, you might lose a couple inches a day if you've got a pool party going on. So the bucket test is a really good way to figure that out. The only thing is, a lot of people have an autofill in their pool, which basically means their pool fills up automatically. They don't have to add water by hose. And so for those people, you have to shut that autofill off a couple of times a year and do that bucket test and really know, hey, am I losing water or not? Because that autofill will disguise that, and they would never know except for a super high water bill.
Got it.
So after they do that bucket test, is there a next step test that you do to see, where's the leak? How do we know if, what volume are we losing?
Yeah, at that point, when they call us, then we like to know really, any symptoms that they think that they're seeing, if they do happen to see water somewhere, or if they happen to notice, hey, I lose a lot more water when everything's running or when it's off. Those are all good things for us to know. But I mean, really, they just need to call us and say, hey, here's how much I'm losing. We like to know how much they're losing in inches. Nobody really knows how many gallons they lose. And so, and some people will say, well, I have to add 20 minutes of water a day. That's not really indicative either, because, well, what's your water pressure out of your hose? Everybody's a little different, So for us, we like to know, hey, can you measure it in inches and tell us what you're really losing in a 24-hour period? And that tells us whether or not we can help you and how drastic the situation is.
Got it. So for houses, I know we're all told we need to water our foundation, and that helps protect our foundation. Is there anything that we can do to protect the pools against a leak, or is it just kind of like crossing your fingers and hoping and praying?
So there are some things that you can do to protect it, but it's one of those things that if the pool was either poorly built or it's built in poor soil, then there's not a lot that you can do. But there are things and steps that you can take, but they're not necessarily, they would help, they wouldn't hurt, but they may not really solve the problem. Mm-hmm. And yes, you can water around a pool. The problem with that, though, is that most pools have a concrete skirting or an edge around them, and so you think that you're watering around it. You're really not, because you can't get it close enough to really water around the edge of the pool to keep that that area constantly moist. But if you're in a situation where you can put some soaker hoses around, certainly similar concept to a foundation, it does help to basically try to keep the moisture level pretty similar from day to day. Where we see the biggest issues is either temperature extremes or moisture extremes. And so going from really hot to really cold, vice versa, and then going from really dry to really wet and vice versa, those are the types of factors that really create that movement. What I tell people to do, especially people that, we get a lot of customers that have moved from California or Florida or wherever, and they're not familiar with the clay that we're on. I say, hey, go out in your yard and dig up a little ball of clay and put it in a jar and bring it inside, and don't allow any water to get into it, and watch what happens to that little bit of clay, and you'll see how drastically it shrinks. And then you add a little bit of water to it and you can see it kind of growing again. And that's all around us. That's what our pool, our house, everything is built on here.
Yeah. No, I like that. That's really helpful, and gives a good visual for people to really understand what's going on and just how important it is to stay on top of all that.
Yep, exactly.
Okay. Let's see. I just want to make sure we cover everything I wanted to talk about. So what made you decide to get into pool repair? Was there anything specific that kind of led you this direction?
Yeah, honestly, so I've always kind of been an entrepreneur at heart. I worked for corporate America for a long, long time, and I, I enjoyed what I was doing, but I really wanted to do something on my own because I have more of that kind of a spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And meeting other people's demands or other people's quotas for me was not. I just got kind of tired of that and wanted to do my own thing. And so as I kind of explored and looked at a lot of different options, and the swimming pool arena made a lot of sense to me. There's a lot of demand, especially in this area.
Mm-hmm.
There, you know, I did hear a statistic. I've never seen it anywhere, but I heard a statistic that we are per capita the number 2 or 3 swimming pool metro in the country.
Wow.
Per capita. And yeah, I can definitely see that there's a lot of people with pools, and pools bring people a lot of joy, and they can bring people a lot of frustration. And it's nice to be able to come in and problem solve and hopefully take frustration back to joy for a lot of people.
No, I like that because I know a lot of people really want a pool, but then especially in this area, there's a lot of concern like, is it worth the headache? Is it worth the hassle? So it's good to know that there's someone who has your back that I can call and trust and can take care of the pool and know that make it enjoyable. So
yeah, for sure. There's a lot of ins and outs and questions and that kind of thing. And I didn't know a thing about it when I got into the industry, honestly. But I learned very, very quickly and developed a lot of good partnerships with other people in the industry. And I've learned a lot. I'm still learning every day. There's still things that are changing and that are new. But it's been exciting. It's been good for me and good for the family for sure.
that's awesome. Well, I want to kind of transition then. I know that we kind of teased everyone at the beginning, and we've known your family, what, 10 years now? Like, I think it's been a long time. But we know that the Holmes family are just wonderful people. It'd be an honor for you to meet them and get to know them. But one of the things that Ken has done, and then I think you've even had your whole family go down once, right?
That's right.
Awesome. But what they do is they go through a program to go to Guatemala, is it?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. To build some homes for people. So, I mean, you can explain better. So if you want to kind of explain what it is, I'll actually bring it up on the screen too, so everyone can see. But if you kind of want to explain what it is that you guys do there, we'd love to hear.
Yep, that'd be great. So my first trip to Guatemala was actually about 3 or 3.5 years ago, and I went with a different project at that time. It was a friend of a friend kind of a thing, and I enjoyed it, but I came away from it thinking, oh, I liked it, but it's not something I wanted to do again.
Yeah.
And I was talking to some friends about that experience, and he said, hey, my wife and I have gone to Guatemala, and this is the project that we do, and we build houses. Next time I go, I'll let you know. And I was like, okay, great. So he told me that was a year ago, January, that I went with this particular project. So it was my second time to Guatemala, first time with this project, and we built 3 houses in the course of just a week, and it was fantastic. And I came away from that experience thinking, you know what, this is something I could do over and over again. And so I went back, and I wanted my family to be able to experience that. And I was able to take all 6 of us in August. And that was a great experience especially for my children. It's very important for me for them to be able to see the world and to see that we are very blessed here in the States, and that there are people that live different ways. And I wanted them to be able to see that and have an appreciation for what we have, as well as to be able to experience the joy that comes from serving other people and building those kind of relationships. And so that was a great experience. And then I went back, the same group that I went with a year ago in January, they go every January, and I was able to join them again for my third trip just this past January. And the project is it's called the God Project. And they have an amazing facility in Antigua, Guatemala, and they have a couple of schools. They have a hospital for babies. They have a medical and a dental clinic, and really their focus is allowing children to have the kind of life that they deserve to have. A part of the love that I have is when you're walking through Antigua in the busy, smog-filled streets, and it's noisy, and you step into this project where the school and the hospital and all that is, and you step into the grounds, and they've done a really good job of making it a place of beauty and hope and peace, and it's a very amazing experience. And then the other part of that is just you get to work hand in hand and side by side with a family that you're building for, and you really develop a relationship with that family. Just to tell a quick story, the family that when we went in August with my own family, the family that we built for was a young couple with a baby, and I've been able to, through Facebook and connecting with them, we've had video calls, and I've been able to keep in touch with them. I'll message them from time to time, and they do me as well. And it's really amazing to build a friendship and a relationship through this project. And they're so grateful and so appreciative of any help that they can get.
That is so neat.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
So if someone wants to get involved with something like that, would you recommend they contact you? Just go straight through God's Child? What would you recommend?
So it kind of depends on how they want to do it. If they have their own, they call them service teams, right? A whole team that goes in and builds a house or multiple houses. So when I went with just my family, I actually took a few friends as well. And there were 10 of us total, and we built 2 houses. So I kind of organized that service team to build 2 houses, and I was kind of the go-to person.
Mm-hmm.
The group that I go with in January is a church out of Frisco, Methodist church, and they go every January, and they always welcome people to join with them. So my recommendation is, if you haven't gone before, it really, to me, it's helpful to go with someone who's already done it, because they can help kind of guide the way. And certainly you want to have somebody that's fluent in Spanish. I think that's helpful as well. However, if you want to contact me, you want to contact the project directly, or if you want to join up with the Grace Avenue Methodist Church, that goes every January, there's a ton of different ways to be involved. And on that involvement, I just wanted to throw this out there. There are a lot of people that don't want to build houses. They're not into construction, or they don't feel like they physically can handle the work. There is a lot of other things to be done. I know when I've gone down there before, kind of on our off days, I've been able to do some things. On the last trip, I was able to work in a classroom for a couple hours, helping kids with math. And then I was also able to work in the kitchen area. They serve the kids a couple of meals a day, and a lot of times that's the only meals those kids are getting. And so I was able to help them, help in the kitchen and do some things. And so a lot of people will go to the hospital for infants, and they'll spend all of their time volunteering, just holding these babies. And so there's a lot of other things that can be done if you're not into the construction thing. For me, I like to build. And so that was the perfect fit for me. But certainly you can help out in a lot of other ways. Even just financial donations to that organization. Obviously, they're just as affected as we are, if not even more so, by the coronavirus. The family that I'm still in touch with, the dad worked on buses as kind of a bus helper, and the mom didn't work, which is pretty typical. And the husband's out of work and has been since all of this started. And so there's definitely a lot of need for a lot of different things with the project.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for sharing. I mean, I know we were really interested when we heard about that. We're like, that is so cool. So I'm sure that other people would love opportunities like that to go and serve and That's really, really neat. But we just want to remind everyone again about your company, where they can contact you. We do have your information streaming at the bottom so that people can find you. But we wanted to share your website real fast here, which is your Leak Tech website, where people can check out different projects you've done. Gives you shows people kind of what it is that you do here, and then as well as some contact information. And I know that my parents have had work done by you. We don't currently own a pool. We had very young children when we bought our pool, or bought our house, so we're like, no. But the parents have had work done by you, and they just loved everything about it. They said the quality was incredible. They said the people, your technicians who came out, were just so kind and wonderful. And so they had nothing but rave reviews. So
thank you.
Do fantastic work. So thank you.
I appreciate that. And I appreciate the opportunity to come on here and talk about that, as well as the Guatemala stuff. And if anybody has any questions, obviously on either one of those things, feel free to reach out anytime.
Sounds great. Well, thank you so much, Ken.
Thank you so much. Really, really great to talk to you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.